The aperture field, a place for seeing clearly and thinking about what matters. Hello friends, this is Carrie Lamotte, and rather than read a written work today, I'm going to do something slightly different and speak kind of off the cuff about the stuff that's on my mind right now around my kids, the future, and AI as well. And we could just really more broadly categorize that as the future of technology and innovation. We've learned so much, and of course, we all know that it's implementation time, and how we do that is so important. So I've got two sons in their 20s, and like many of you who are from Gen X, I have this just funny existence right now where the pressure of building and bridging this period of long time innovation and discovery that we're coming out of, which has been beautiful, like amazing. What a 150, 200 years that we've experienced. And I have the sense that, it's now time that we need to integrate that into society and take that innovation and make sure that it holistically solves the problems of the future. And when I listen to my kids and their friends, they're not kids anymore, but when I listen to their generations, I'm hearing very strongly what they want to see in terms of sustainability and a positive future, and heck, the ability to buy houses even. And so given that my generation is in that position of now, holding the reins of society just based on our age and being able to affect change, I have just a serious sense of responsibility and energy towards doing that for them. And it's not that I'm just thinking about their generation. I'm thinking about my grandchildren and then their children and onwards, multiple generations down the road, and this world that they're going to inherit. So I'm not taking this lightly. I'm taking my role as one individual of millions, billions, and recognizing that there is a role for me and others to play in ensuring that there is a beautiful future for them. And I think, I've been watching Little House on the Prairie, the remake, and it's been really interesting to see what some people say is more canon. It's a more accurate representation, perhaps, of how things were, hundreds of years ago, or 100 years ago. I actually don't know exactly what the decade was that it was built, but it's interesting to watch that and to realize in such a short amount of time how much change has happened. And so I'm looking back over the last century and a half, and if we just think 150 years ago, electric light was a novelty. Like, really let that sink in for a minute. We've gone from horses to spacecraft. We used to write handwritten letters with quills, for Pete's sake, all the way to instant global communication. We've moved from fossil fuels like coal to increasingly renewable energy systems, and to computers that are filling buildings and our devices in our pockets. Like, this is an astounding difference in just 150 years. And I feel like as a culture, as a society, we've made this massive, it's like running a massive race, and we've gotten to the end of the race and we're exhausted and we don't know what to do. It's like we haven't taken stock yet. So I feel like we're in that place where it's time to take significant stock and then implement some of these beautiful learnings we've had. But in doing so, and if we look back over those 150 years, each one of those technological shifts that happened came with a massive amount of fear. Like, when I was reading about this, as I'm watching, of course, Little House on the Prairie, because it's so interesting, and I'm like, oh, the railways, like, what is that? And so I start reading about that. People were worried that railways would damage our bodies and destroy communities. Like, it wasn't like railroads came and they were like, oh, great, it's railroads, fantastic. There was actually this massive concern. On electricity, they thought it would ruin our health and it would disrupt the natural rhythm of life. some of these things aren't super wrong either, by the way. They worried that the telephone was going to eliminate real conversation, and that television itself, when that came in, would destroy families. And if we fast forward, we see things like the internet where, well, the concern is that it's going to destroy truth. And I guess as I look at those fears, and, some of them are, what can the human body withstand in terms of speed? I think that was an automobile concern that came up. And of course, science helps us to understand these things, and we say, "Oh, actually, it turns out we can be in a car and it can go, 100 miles an hour, and we won't die. Nothing bad really happens." But what's interesting is a lot of the fears that came up still had a grain of truth inside of them. And technology has always created new challenges. Advancement creates new challenges, but we're a very resilient species. Every time we imagine taking these new innovations into the world, I think the way that we think about it is that we consider it as, oh, we'll just add this into the world and it'll be this multiplier. We'll put it on the world today, and that's how it's going to go. And I think back to the horse and buggies when they were going through towns and people were getting run over by them, and it was actually a pretty hectic scene as far as I can tell. And then cars came in, and cars were so much faster than the buggies and more able to move around. So suddenly it was even more chaotic and scary. And if we just take that example, the way to get through that was not to leave things the way they were. The way to get around it was to actually reshape the way that city streets work and to create lanes and signals and think about rules for cars that were needed. And that wasn't something that happened before the cars came. It was something that, obviously there were probably a lot of accidents. There were a lot of people saying, actually, this is not the best way to do it. Let's fix this. So I think that there's something we need to be considering around how we actually reorganize the systems themselves, and when we have new innovations, and that there is a part of it where we have to let go of how things were before in order to allow something that's better to come into play, and then to know that we're not going to get it right at the beginning. We're going to have to continue iterating and learning how it integrates in. And that gets me to this concept of artificial intelligence, because obviously we all know that we're in another of those moments right now. And right now, most of the conversation is about what AI is going to replace or could replace. Is it going to take our jobs? Will people stop thinking? Will misinformation get worse? And all of these are really important questions, but they're mostly first-order questions. What I'm fascinated by is different than that, and that's what happens when human thinking itself gains a new environment in which to unfold. And I think one thing I've noticed in my own work over these past many years is nearly everybody that I meet is carrying way more complexity than they know what to do with. And that's leaders, that's researchers, consultants, it's founders of new initiatives. They're trying to solve difficult problems. If we just look at innovation, trying to get a brand new innovation that solves fundamental human problems in the world, that is not an easy thing. It turns out the systems themselves don't allow the very medicine that they need. And there, we can look at that at lots of levels, and maybe a different podcast I'll talk about that. But the thing is that it's not that the people who are founding and creating these new innovations, solving world hunger and solving poverty and doing all these things, it's not that they lack intelligence, it's that they're trying to hold too many moving pieces in their head at once. It's the context, the relationships, the history, the trade-offs, at the same time as envisioning what the possibilities are and making the decisions to march towards that future. And they're just running out of cognitive room. And so what's super interesting to me is that here we have society at its kind of breaking point where the complexity is so great that even the best minds are starting to fracture under whether or not they can handle all the different things that need to be considered. And from a timing perspective, in comes an AI, and AI allows us to extend our cognitive bandwidth. It's like creating this larger table or workbench for us to put all those different complexities onto and start to really think through them. So for me, one of the things as I've been working with AI, and I started back when you had to apply to get a beta test on it, and one of the things I've noticed is that it doesn't think for me, but that may be partly my personality type. I'm not somebody who appreciates people thinking for me. I really appreciate people providing me with other perspectives that I can then synthesize and make into a whole, but I'm not looking for external answers. And so what it has done for me is that instead of trying to juggle many, many, many different stakeholders and concerns to be addressed internally, I can externalize it. It's like I can see it it's almost like putting it up on a whiteboard virtually, and I can start to see the connections that I wasn't able to see before that. I can start looking at my assumptions. I can test them. I can hold multiple perspectives at once and then dance between the different ways of seeing a problem. I can pressure test the ideas that I see or that I think of. I can translate across disciplines. And I guess in general, I can find structure where before it was kind of a cloud of thoughts. It was, they're all competing for each other and I'm trying to figure out which one takes priority. So the judgment is still mine and the values are mine. The responsibility is certainly still mine, but suddenly it gives me more time to think. And I feel like that realization for me completely changed how I use AI. And eventually it became the foundation for a course that I've been teaching called AI as a Thinking Partner. And I took a totally different approach on this. It's not about prompts or tricks or productivity hacks. Instead it's about developing a practice as a leader for how to deal with complexity. People in the course are taking real projects, real uncertainty they're facing, and decisions that they have to make. And together, we're learning how to use AI to think more clearly and recognize patterns, challenge the assumptions we're bringing in, organize the complexity that we're seeing, and then translate all of those ideas into action. And so the goal is not to become dependent on AI. It's actually almost completely the opposite. It's to become more deeply human, more thoughtful, more discerning, and more capable of working with this complexity that modern life is increasingly demanding of us. So we have had several cohorts go through in the program now, and one of the most rewarding things I've heard people say is that it didn't replace their thinking, it helped them recover it. So they're coming in with this sense of overwhelm, and suddenly it's like a bright light comes through and they're able to say, okay, I want to think conceptually about this issue and understand it deeply so I can make a better decision, but I'm going to have to look at 10 different perspectives to do that in a better way. And so I think that's the opportunity we're standing in front of. So instead of, the future primarily being, I guess, belonging to the people who use AI to produce more, maybe instead it's belonging to the people who learn how to create more room for ideas to connect, for better questions, for wiser decisions, and for real understanding of different perspectives. And if that resonates with you, I'd love to have you join one of the upcoming cohorts. You can find details in the show notes or just reach out and tell me about the complexity that you're carrying right now. I truly would love to hear your story. There are so many people who are doing such beautiful things in the world today, and we have a tool that we can use when we use it with discernment and with grace that will help us to accomplish these things. So until next time, take care. These notes are really an ongoing exploration, an attempt to make sense of the patterns, tensions, and transitions shaping the world around us and within us. If something here resonated with you or sparked reflections of your own, you can continue the conversation over at the Aperture Field on Substack. I'd truly love to hear what you're seeing too. Until next time, take good care of yourself and of the systems you're part of. Music by Pavel Bekarev.